Hello, everybody. Dr. Tom Forfer here for the Doctors Collective, talking about how I replaced my income as a doctor by getting online without having to be a tech guru or blogging or anything crazy like that. I'm going to wait a minute for let a few people join us, but I recently often have been asked by people about how I was able to create the life where we travel 6 months of the year, where we work at home for 6 months, we travel 6 months of the year internationally, and I went from being an overworked doctor, working in the hospital system, all the crazy hours, night shifts, weekends, doing it all, and then go to the next year and we're traveling and I'm learning French in Nice and we're spending time in New Orleans, really having a great time. And I want to talk to you about how I did that, how I was able to create that life where my wife Maria and I are able to do that. We're at the moment where our little daughter, had a little daughter, so we're staying put. In fact, we have been put here in Zetland with a really beautiful view for the last 2 years, but we're moving to the Gold Coast in winter, into the Sydney winter when it gets a bit colder. So we're kind of getting back into it in a small way. But let's jump into it. So we've got a few people joining us. Welcome, everybody. And I want to tell you how I replaced my income as a doctor by getting online. And it all started for me because we wanted free restaurant meals. My wife, Maria, and I, at the time she was my girlfriend, we wanted free restaurant meals. I was working in a low-level job in banking. Marie was working in HR, I think for a shipping company at that point, and we were like, right, we want to eat out, we want to enjoy life, we want to go to nice restaurants, but we can't afford to pay for it. So we're like, how about we become restaurant reviewers? And I'd heard this little scheme that someone was running where they were a restaurant reviewer and they would put a business card on the table of the restaurant, and the waiter would come along, and the idea was that the waiter would see it, and they go, oh, you're a restaurant reviewer, and they'd attempt to sway the opinion of the reviewer by saying, well, the meal is on the house. And I thought, right, sounds good to me. Let's become restaurant reviewers. And so I thought, okay, let's set up a website so we can actually review this thing, print some cards, and get this thing going. Let's get some free meals. And I was like, well, I don't know the first thing about putting up a website. Let's look it up. I went online, how to put up a website, a review site. I think I put how to put up a review site, restaurant review site, and bang, this free event popped up. And I was like, it's in Homebush in Sydney. It's happening in like 4 days. It's free. Hell yeah, I'm going. And I went. And I was at this event. And just to give you a bit of background, at the same time as all this was happening, I was simultaneously trying to get through the GAMSAT. Now, if you don't know what the GAMSAT is, it's the postgraduate medicine entrance exam in Australia. So you have to sit it to get into medicine in Australia, into a postgraduate degree. So I was doing this exam, and I was struggling. All right, to give you the big picture, it took me 3 years to get through this thing, 3 attempts over 3 years, and this was all happening while this restaurant review stuff was going on. And so I went to this event, this free event, to learn how to put up a review site. And while I was there, and they were talking about, yeah, they covered how to put up a review site, but they also talked about all these incredible things like setting up ebooks, which these days sound like, whatever. But back then, this was like in 2005, 2006. I went to this event. They're talking about ebooks. They had all these testimonials of people who were really not tech friendly. That they had like 90-year-old women putting up these websites and making all this money, and there were low overheads. Where it was cheap to put up this thing, and they were just PDFs. An ebook is a PDF which you can create for free on your computer, and it doesn't cost you an extra cent to send out a new one. So the overheads were low. You could charge a decent amount for these things, and the profits were huge. And I was like, oh my God, what am I doing? Trying to get a free restaurant meal when I can make the money to actually pay for meals whenever I want, instead of just hoping that maybe this guy will give me something for free. Instead, I can make the money to pay for the meals that I wanted, plus pay for the travel that I wanted to do and live the life that I wanted. And I was like, well, this sounds fantastic. And so that day, while I was at the event, I put down a couple of $1,000 and I bought the course that was on offer. And at that point, I ditched the whole restaurant review idea. I was like, right, what's the point of trying to get a free meal here and there when I can pay for whatever I want? And so I was going through this exam at the same time, the GAMSAT, and eventually I got through it. And I could see that it was coming. I could see that the end of my GAMSAT journey was coming and I was about to get through. And so I started to write an ebook about it. I started to put all my thoughts onto paper about about all the different ideas, because I went from messing this thing up, right, royally messing it up, and then 3 years later to getting into the medical school that I wanted to. So over those 3 years, I learned an incredible amount of information, and there were tons of people out there who wanted to know it, who were desperate to get it, because it would have it could save them years of their life, at least 3, and it would also allow them to fulfill the dream that they wanted to live, to be able to become doctors. And so I put this information into an ebook. I gave it away to people for free, and they loved it. And they loved it, and I thought, well, let's create a paid version of this. So I started charging, I think it was like $70 for an ebook with it had like 40 pages in it, but it had the instructions, exact steps that they had to take to get through this exam. It was called the 13 Steps to Mastering the GAMSAT. And it started to sell. It was selling really well. People were getting the free one, and they were upgrading to the paid one. And then I added an essay grading component to the program, and then another component, some extra practice questions, and then a science section, because there's three sections to the exam, 4 3. And I was just adding bits and pieces to this program until eventually we packaged it up into one thing and started selling it. Now, the way that we sold it initially was really exciting. It was really cool. We used webinars. And webinars, if you've probably been to some of them, they're an online presentation where you go through a specific structure, and then at the end you make an offer. You invite people to join your program. And it was going really well, but what I do in our business and with all our private clients is that we look at setting up really leveraged ways to find the right people, sell them into your program, and then deliver your program in a really leveraged way. And so I thought, right, let's get these webinars and automate them. So that happened on autopilot. And so I set this thing up. And Marie and I, by this stage, we were living together, and it was her birthday. And I was in medicine. This was all happening. And then I got in, and I was studying at medical school and doing this at home. I'd rush home and try and set all this stuff up, and so I'd be working around the clock. But I set up an automated webinar one night, and Maria was like, you know what, that's enough. I've had enough of your shit. We're going out tonight. It's my birthday. I don't want you going on the computer all day. I'm like, okay, fine, let's do that. And so we went out. We had a great time. We paid for the meal. We drank all this great wine, ate great food. And when I got back, what did I do? I jumped straight onto the computer. And as you can imagine, Maria was pretty pissed off. But then I told her that while we were at dinner, enjoying the meal and the wine and the great time, we made over $12,000 while we were out on autopilot, over $12,000 on autopilot while we were having dinner. She was pretty happy with that. She forgave me for getting on the computer that day. Right, and so what we did was I set up this webinar to run automatically, and then at the end, it made an offer, and then people joined, and a whole bunch of people joined. And so, like you can imagine, being a medical student, having made all this money, and being like, "Oh my God, I think I've discovered something amazing here." And we continued doing that, and the income from the webinar was kind of fluctuating. And then I got to a point where I was an intern. I was working in the hospital system, and the business was going. And by that point, Marie had left her job in corporate human resource management and was working on the business, helping people get through this exam. And it was kind of up and down. There were good times, there were down times, but it was really inconsistent. And at the same time, my medical career, as you know, was getting busy. I had to look at training programs and doing all the extra study and the extra work and sucking up to the right people and all that kind of stuff. And I couldn't do both. I couldn't grow the business, but also move forward in my medical career. And at that point, there was nobody there to coach me through this. No one was going through something like this, where they were simultaneously trying to run a company, but also because by that stage we had, like, depending on the time of the year, anywhere from 12 to 20 staff, hundreds of clients, and so it was pretty much running a company at the same time trying to develop a medical career. So I was kind of stuck, and I had to figure this stuff out myself. And so I felt like I had to make the decision to pick one. And so I did. And so I thought, you know what, I could put medicine aside for a few months and then come back when the business is more automated, or it's growing at a more steady rate, because it needed my full attention. And so I went to the hospital. I went to JMO management, and I had the conversation. I'd like some time off. As you can imagine, they weren't as excited for me as I was. But I was persistent, and I ended up getting like 2 terms off. I think it was 2 terms. And so then at that point, I went home, I proposed to Marie, we packed up our apartment, and we got on a plane to Europe. And at that point, we actually took on some new mentors as well. We paid a bucket load to take on these new mentors, business mentors, that is. And so we were like, shit, we've paid all this money, we've made these sacrifices, we need to make this thing work. And so we were traveling across Europe with our computers, getting on the phones and running our business. And it kind of J-curved in that year. While we were traveling, it just went, well, it's probably better this way. We made more money that year than ever before than I'd had at working as a doctor, and we haven't looked back. And what happened was that we were going through Europe, and I remember the moment where we were in Macedonia. My wife's from Macedonia, and so we were visiting some of the family there, and we were staying in the lakeside town of Ohrid. Really beautiful place. It's like across the lake is Albania, and then there's Macedonia. It's a really beautiful place. It's like 40 degrees outside, nice and comfortable inside. And I have to go back to the hospital. We're making more money than ever before. We're making a great impact on the world in the way that we wanted to be making it at the time. And we have all this incredible freedom. In fact, we had just been in Poland, and we decided, no, we want some sun. So we got on a plane and flew to the Croatian islands, and then we were in Macedonia. So we had this incredible freedom. And I thought to myself, why go back? Why go back to the hospital? And so I sent in my resignation, and I haven't been back since. And that's been about, probably around 4 or 5 years ago now. And so ever since, Maria and I have been traveling 6 months of the year, working at home 6 months of the year, and we like to stay in each location 4 weeks, because we get to know that place very well, get to be in the routine, and we can run the business there. And we can run the business from anywhere we have a Wi-Fi connection. And so now I'm at this position where I've been seeing my medical colleagues, trying to create the life that they've always wanted to. But they've realized, and I realized at a point too, that I can't do it. We can't live that life we want doing the traditional form of medicine, where you're in the hospital at God knows what time, whenever they want you there, or in the clinic doing the things around the clock. That doesn't make for a very good life. And I realized that, and a lot of doctors are realizing that too now as well. And recently we had a number of doctors approach us and say, hey, how have you done this? And so we've been sharing it. And part of what the Doctors Collective does is that we show doctors how to do what we've been able to do, how to take the skills that you already have. So you don't have to learn something completely new. You can take the skills you already have. And there's an easy process that we can take you through that, and we do with all our private clients, to take that out of your head, create a plan, and then turn it into a business that you could run in the same way that we have. Online, from wherever we've got internet connection, from the Croatian islands, or while you learn French in the Riviera, or while listening to jazz in New Orleans, all stuff that we've done. It is amazing. I highly recommend it. And we show them how to do that, how to set that up. And we also take doctors who are running businesses already and want to take those to a new level, but more specifically, do it in a way that's really leveraged, so that it doesn't require more of your time, because that's one of the barriers for a lot of people when it comes to growing their existing business, is like, shit, I don't want the extra work. more money, more clients means more work, and I don't want that. So what we do is with our private clients is we help them to set up their business in a way that doesn't require more of their time, where you're using your time in a much more strategic and effective way, but also growing what you're doing at the same time so that you can spend time with the family. In fact, this is something that Richard Branson told us when we were on safari with him recently in South Africa. Now, one of the big takeaways for me from getting to know Sir Richard and hanging out with him was, we were sitting around, and I can't remember what the question was, but he turned to Marie and he goes, "Is Tom a good delegator?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm a good delegator." He didn't believe me, so he turned to Marie and goes, "Marie, is he a good delegator?" And she was like sticking up for me. She goes, "Yeah, he's all right." And Richard goes, "No, you need to delegate more. You need to," in fact, he goes, "Delegate everything, right? Delegate everything." So that then, because you, as a business owner, you don't need to be in there running it. You need to be outside of it, growing it, and spending time with your family. That's what he said. He goes, that way you get more time to do the high level thinking, the strategic thinking, and spend time with your family and look after yourself. So I'm taking that on. I've been taking that on for many years, and we help our private clients take that lesson on as well. So I hope that's been interesting and insightful to you, our whole journey. And if you want to know more, follow us here at the Doctors Collective or get in touch with us. But enjoy and have a great day.